Calling ourselves to order at 3:31. Bill is taking minutes, acting as secretary today. I will do the roll call. George Savage here. I am here. Stephen Kasani.
Here.
Okay. Ken Levine. Here. Chris Rittler. Michelle Takai.
Here.
Bill Urban.
Here.
Mark Wasett. Here. All right. We are all here today. We have an action-packed agenda for everyone. First, though, we'll go to item 2 here. This is oral communications for items not on the agenda. And does anyone have anything to add for us on that score? And surveying the online board, I do not see any hands. So going once, going twice. Okay, we'll move on. Number 3, announcements and presentations. We do not have any that I'm aware of.
I have one, just want to call attention to. I believe the town council is going to hold a second public hearing. I believe it's on their upcoming Wednesday, June 24th meeting related to town charter and tax measures. I just wanted to point that out because I know there were 2, and I know the first one ran very late, or it started late. So there may be some people that want to make a point of the January 24th one. Do we know what time it'll be scheduled on the agenda? Yeah, there'd be the public hearing portion of that. That usually comes at the end of a meeting, but
And for those online, Mayor Taylor is saying that it will earlier in the agenda.
Yeah, the public hearing is held after the consent agenda and before the regular agenda. The last meeting, we had the fee study report as well as a public hearing, which we had 2 public hearings at the last council meeting.
okay. I just wanted to announce it since that's fairly important, and we might want to encourage all community members who have an interest to make a note of that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Bill. Next, we move on to approval of minutes. The minutes of May 19th are attached in your packet. I hope everyone's read them. I look forward to move to approve.
So move.
Second. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone? Nope. Okay, so the minutes of May 19th are approved. Wonderful. We now move on to item 5, new business. We have 3 items today: audit schedule, the draft budget for the coming fiscal year, and then a presentation on town finances by our mayor, Craig Taylor. So beginning with item A, I'll ask Tony to tell us where we are on the audit.
So for the 22-23 audit, I have submitted the MD&A. It's currently with the auditors. I'm also reviewing the memorandum of internal control and providing our responses to that. And then the auditors should be turning it around within the next couple of weeks. And then depending on if the finance committee wants to meet again in June for a review, then we could have it into council for July. 23-24, we're currently finishing up all our entries, our correcting entries, and hopefully have those to the auditors by the end of June. And then 23-24 will probably take another 2 months for the auditors to complete their review. And then 24-25 will be after that. I don't have definite timelines because the issue with the 22-23 audit with the out of balance situation kind of pushed us back. And we're now in the midst of the auditor's normal calendar with their clients, doing field work with, like, for example, the town of Woodside is also a client of theirs. So we're going to figure out a way to get worked into their normal schedule over the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to another meeting of the committee, given the import of this, I'd be in favor of this if other members are willing to meet again as soon as this is available, in, say 2 or 3 weeks time. Does anyone have an opinion on this now, or should we take it offline?
Well, at some point, we have to discuss the revenue options before July. So we may be meeting anyway, right? Yeah, well, I am looking at you.
We're asking Mayor Taylor for an opinion there.
Yeah, so I think from a finance committee point of view, I think we got your recommendations like a while back on the different options. So I think at this point, it's just sort of moving through the council process. I mean, I think we're always open to input from you guys, but I don't think it's going to come back as a formal agenda.
Okay, well, let me frame it this way. If there's no objection from anyone on the committee here, I'll work with Tony, and as soon as we have the audit available, try to schedule a meeting for us so that we can review it and get that put to bed. So that way, the closer we can get to up to date, the happier I am. Okay, great. Are there any comments on this agenda item, the audit schedule, from members of the public here? I see a hand from Rita Comas. Rita? Rita, I see your hand, but you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. I was looking for the unmute button, but you know, at the last town council meeting, when they were talking about the audits, it was suggested that the delay was because of the auditors, which is, you know, I mean, we're talking about audits from 2022. So, you know, we as a town living in our little glass house should not be throwing any stones. But I know this audit company has been working very hard on behalf of our town when they do receive information, and you know, we need to take onus of our own delays and not put it on the auditors that have been working hard for us when we do engage with them. Thank you.
Hi, Rita. I think I will just comment on that a little bit in the sense that I think it was not impugning the work ethic of the auditors so much as there was a disagreement that took a while to work out that impacted the schedule. And given it was on the 22-23 audit, and that audits are sequential and, you know, function in a waterfall fashion, you can't process them in parallel, that just gummed everything up. Is that correct, Tony?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, great. So just that's how it was, quote, the auditors, not because they weren't working hard, but because they came up with a different number, and the internal team here in PV, and they had to work out who was right and how to resolve that, which is now being done. David Cardinal, your turn.
Yeah, first, I can't imagine anyone other than our town manager and Tony who wants to get the audits resolved more than the finance committee. So I think everybody's moving heaven and earth. I got the comment last time that the auditor, based on the input, can only process so much. I don't think that was a pin the tail on the donkey. I think that was just like, here's where we are, and now it's their turn and they have to do that. So I don't know, it's kind of wearing to hear a lot of griping. Yeah, we're years behind or whatever, and that happened, but it's not happening now. So I'm really pleased with what we're doing now, and I think we should keep doing it and keep improving it. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. And yeah, I just want to chime in from my perspective, meeting with Tony very regularly and the finance committee having regular meetings here, the level of information and the quality of the finance department doing on top of things is really quite impressive and different from back when we got into this problem around the time of the pandemic. Any other comments on this item before I? Okay, any discussion here before we move on?
George.
Oh, somebody else talking?
It's not, it's someone else.
Okay, here on the committee, any discussion on the audit? Okay, we'll move on to the meaty subjects. The audits remain very important to us, but we've got a schedule. We're going to deal with 22, 23 here in the coming next couple of weeks, and at the end of the summer, 23, 24, and then we'll be just about caught up quick as we can. Moving on to draft fiscal year 26, 27 general fund budget, 5B. I'd like to ask Tony to present it to us, and then we'll have a discussion.
Okay, let me. So this is just as an important of task as finishing our audits. It's presenting a budget that gets adopted for July 1st. So this is our preliminary budget for 26, 27.
Forgive me, Tony. I've noticed just with your microphone, both in the room and actually over the wire, there's what is it? There's it's not clear. You're speaking loudly enough, but there's no clarity. Is there a issue with your microphone? Because the rest of us sound clear to me, but you sound different here.
Maybe more distance. Try backing the microphone off. It may be that you're just.
I'm more. We can hear you okay here. I'm more worried about people online, perhaps. Hear a lot of raspiness.
It may be the near.
It could be my voice.
I think it may be a near field effect. If you back it off like 6 inches, that may help, because otherwise the bass is accentuated.
Okay. Does this sound?
That sounds very good right now.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
I learned about close talking mics.
Right. I know if you hold it really
Trying to
close.
be a
there's-
radio DJ.
yeah.
It was going to be a really good one.
Okay. So just to review, these are the council priorities that figure in the way that the budget is developed. Number one is financial responsibility and long-term viability. Number two is safety. Number three is operational efficiency and effectiveness. Fourth one is responsible land use, community, and then environmental sustainability. Taking a deeper dive of financial responsibility, yes, completing the backlog of audits is one of the strategies incorporated in these priorities, but we also have to look at just long-term where the town is going financially. So looking at revenues, most of our revenues that are generated are from taxes such as property tax, utility users tax, sales tax, and then we just completed a user fee study, so that's charges for services and licenses and permits make up most of that revenue as well. So looking at our general fund budget revenue for 26-27, we're projecting about 8.26 million, which is a 3.9% increase, which goes along with what has been our trend. We've been saying our trend is 4% increase in revenues and 6% increase in expenses, which is why there's a structural deficit. And as you can see, about 76% of our revenue is generated from tax revenue. So in looking at our revenue categories, we're looking at about a 5.3% increase in property taxes, sales and use tax about 7.7%, utility users tax 2.9%, business license. We issue about 700 business licenses a year, and most of them are contractors doing home remodels and and other types of construction. And then franchise fees, we're looking at a 1% increase. So it's about $310,000. I have not factored in the impacts from the fee study since the fee study was just adopted last week or just approved last week. We are currently reviewing how that's going to impact building and planning fees. Also, the council accepted all categories except for recreation. So we're going to be working with the Parks and Rec Committee to review within the next week or two and have some of those updated numbers for the June 24th council meeting. So as I said, still under review, licenses and permits and charges for service. So here's a breakdown of home sales over the last, or actually property transfers. This includes single family residences and single family residences. And as you can see, since 2021, we've averaged 51 sales at single family residences, averaging 5.2 million per transfer. And then for non-single family residences, these include multiple family residences, industrial, commercial. We're averaging 4 sales totaling 3.1 million per average. And the 1 year that's kind of the outlier is 2023, where the actual average sale price went down pretty significantly, almost 51%. And these are numbers from Paula Corn from HDL. So looking onto the expense side, these are the categories for salaries or for expenses. It's salaries and benefits, contract services, which includes consultants and town work provided by contract. So town attorney, the sheriff's contract, and then supplies, maintenance, or CIP, and then transfers. So looking at general fund expenses, we're currently preliminary, it's 8.85 million, which is about 7.7%. So a little bit higher than what the trend is. And the big culprit is the significant increase to the general fund for the sheriff's contract. You know, the sheriff's contract only went up $197,000 total. The impact to the general fund was a little bit under 500. So looking at general fund expenses, salaries are projected to increase about 70,000, about 3%. Included in salaries is a 2.5% COLA that the council authorized. Also, we're starting the year with only 1 vacant position, or excuse me, 2 vacant positions. But with building and planning, we have a permanent director in place. We also have a senior planner in place, whereas last year we had a retired annuitant in that position, and we had a vacancy with our senior planner. So we had salary savings from those 2 vacant positions for quite some time. So starting in July, we're going to have those positions filled. So that's why there's an increase in salaries projected. Benefits, almost $45,000. That's predominantly with our medical premiums. And also the increase in the UAL payment, which is the unfunded pension liability that's amortized over 20 years. Services are increasing 42,000. And some of that is related to subscription increases and just some other costs related to consultant services provided for building and planning. On the contract side, almost $500,000. That is primarily the sheriff's contract. We're looking at a $30,000. We're still reviewing consultants for building and planning. We'll be bringing contracts to the council on June 24th. So we'll have updated numbers for consultants. And then transfers out, that number might change too as well. As we look at our road improvement project for next year. And then we're increasing development a little bit more because we do have new employees. And so we're going to commit to training them so that they can provide more effective and efficient service for the town residents. But as I stated earlier, still under review is services with subscriptions, consultants, and transfers out. So these numbers will be updated prior to or coming up on June 24th. So right now we're projecting a deficit of about 585,000. But I think that number is going to go up when we're done with all our review on the expense side. So in looking at salaries, we have total FTE 15 positions. We are proposing a new position, finance manager. Since I've been promoted to assistant town manager, we need to have someone in the finance department to handle day to day. Also still helps us to maintain the level of internal controls that make sure all of our processes are done in a consistent manner. We're also looking at adding an accountant one position. We do have an internal person who's a finance technician who's been doing an excellent job for the last 2 years. So adding an accountant one position gives a career track because there was a gap in our organizational structure where we had a technician and then it went to senior accountant. So adding the accountant one actually creates a career track and which does help with our retention of the employees that we have. In the planning and building side, we have a senior development review technician, but we're looking to enhance the position a little bit so that actually take on some building inspection. So it's more of a hybrid position. If we can fill this position, then that will reduce the consulting cost for building inspectors. So these 3 positions have been added into the salary structure. However, with the salary savings from reducing from finance director to finance manager, it's helping pay for these new positions and also the 2.5% COLA, which came out to about $53,000. But the net decrease is actually 5,000 by adding these 3 positions and the COLA and not eliminating the finance director position. It's just no longer in the budget, but it's being replaced by these 3 new positions and the COLA. So retirement, our UL, excuse me, retirement contributions, even though the contribution rate has gone down, we are estimating an increase of 135,000 again, because we do have we have more positions currently being paid for. So that's going to mean more contributions per pay period. So we are estimating an increase of 135,000 in retirement or contribution rates to PERS. And then with the UAL, the increase is about 26,000 from the previous year. Our current pension liability is about total liability is 10.97 million, but then that gets amortized over 10 years. And then our market value of assets is 9 million. So we have a total pension liability of 1.97 million. And then looking at medical, we're looking at about 12% increase in our Anthem plan, the average Anthem plan that most of our employees are in. And then the Kaiser plan is an 8% increase. And since COVID, or since the end of COVID, medical premiums have skyrocketed. And so we've had to account for that in our budget. So even though the premium goes into effect January 1st, and it's a 12% increase, the actual impact of the budget is a 6% because it's the impact is over 6 months. So it's still a significant number. And it's a number that's going to continue to increase, and it's going to continue to increase at a double-digit rate for what I can see. So we're looking at about a $27,000 increase total for our medical premium. And it's about 250,000. As you can see, it's gone up almost 100,000 since 21-22. And 21-22, 22-23, we had more employees than we do now. So it's kind of a contradiction, but it's just the cost per plan has increased significantly over the last 4 years. So looking at contract services, again, we have town attorney, San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, Woodside Fire, and planning and building. We have consultants that do town work as well as project applicant work. So there's Good City, they assist with planning. CSG consultants are building plan review, inspections. Interwest is town engineer and project management for some of our CIP projects, specifically the street resurfacing. And then we have Shooms Coda. They're a backup person to assist with permit processing. So there's a lot of augmentation of services by consultants specific in planning and building. And then with our subscriptions, we've completely shifted over to OpenGov. We should be fully operational by the fall. We have other IT infrastructure, backup servers, and our email servers are all backed up. Microsoft 365. There's other Bluebeam for planning and building, Starlink, Ring for our phone system, and then Zoom for all our meetings that are held remotely. So looking at the sheriff, total increase from year to year is 197,000 or 8.4%. I know I had said in previous meetings that the impact of the general fund was over 500,000. I was able to find an additional 20,000 in COPS funding. So instead of 508,000, it's 488,000. Still a pretty significant number for the general fund to absorb. But again, it's, that increase is due to the $197,000 increase to the contract, the expiration of the $211,000 credit, and then not being able, or the expiration of the one-time funds of ARPA, and then subtracting that by 20,000 with the additional COPS funding, which is ongoing. We receive public safety sales tax and COPS funding on an annual basis. So we might be able to steer more funding towards COPS grants, but the balance is it's like 400,000 to 500,000 in that fund right now. So we kind of want to keep it going on an annual basis, and we can use it for other things as well. But predominantly, we're using it to offset some of the costs for the sheriff's contract. So Woodside Fire, they're actually slightly decreased this year, predominantly from the CHIP program. And also this includes 60 days of vegetation management, whereas in prior to 25-26, it was 80 days. So we did reduce the number of days for vegetation management from 80 to 60. If our costs keep increasing, then it could be we go from 60 days to 50 days just to, and this is vegetation management in the town's right of way, that if Woodside Fire wasn't doing it, somebody else would be, because this is the town's responsibility to maintain the town's right of way. So moving to our capital improvements, we're projecting 1.45 million. The significant portion of it is in street resurfacing, almost 986,000. That number could increase, but we have funding in gas tax, RMRA, Measure A, we have other funding sources that could fund the increase in this as well. One thing to keep in mind is we do have a maintenance of effort that's required of the general fund. It is about 350,000 per year. If we don't maintain that MOE number, We run the risk of losing and RMRA funding, which is SB1. That's about $100,000 to $120,000 per year. So we did not spend $350,000 last year for road resurfacing because, I mean, we didn't have staff in place, and so we had to defer a project. But if that continues, then we run the risk of losing that funding. Other items that continue to be discussed is the bathroom at Ford Field. And then we also have issues with the Valley Oak Trail bridges. It's currently, if we replace them or not, we're working with our insurance provider and also with the EV Ranch folks to come up with a solution. And then we have the grants associated with town hall energy efficiency upgrades. And then you'll be seeing, I believe, it's either the next meeting or we were in a memorandum of understanding with other cities to implement or to build EV charging stations in town. And we're going to be combining resources, but for other cities, get some economy of scales. But we do have a grant from, I want to say MTC, to fund this project. But there will be some impact to general fund, but it's going to be staff time. And also, there's going to be rebates generated, so that'll offset some of the operating costs for the town. So again, here's the fiscal forecast. And you can see we're still projecting that the general fund reserve will be zero or near zero by the end of fiscal year 2030-31. We will be, but caveat, we haven't taken into account the increases from the fee study. So once those numbers get updated, we'll probably have an updated forecast for the the June 24th meeting. So that concludes my report. Take it back to the committee for discussion and questions.
Thank you, Tony. What I'd like to do now is clarifying questions from the committee, and then we'll hear from the public, and then we can have a discussion on policy kind of items and everything else.
Yeah, I have a question. So Tony, I think you had mentioned that with the new fee study having just recently been adopted by the town council with the exception of the recreation fees, do you have an estimate? I don't think anyone's going to hold you to it, but just have an estimate as to, with the implementation of the new fee study, how it would change the revenue line. The current revenue line is around 8.3 million. Do you have a sense as to what it might look like?
I don't have a range yet. The user fee study said, if we charged full cost recovery, it was about $500,000, about 500,000. But in some review, it's in some of the fees we might have reduced because we want compliance instead of full cost, which is consistent with the fee study. So I don't have a range yet. Like I said, we just got this last week. So I didn't have it in time for the packet going out on Friday. But again, we'll be working on that with the Parks and Rec Committee, but also Building and Planning is also reviewing what the fee was actually approved as opposed to what was recommended, and then figuring out what the impact's going to be. Because some fees did go down, some fees did go up. So, but as is right now, I do not have a range for today.
Before we get into the details, in the past, you've stated that we have a structural deficit of about $700,000. This, the numbers you just presented show a deficit of $585,000 before the fee study changes. What's happened to the other $100,000?
So we still are reviewing consultants. There's other expenses we're still reviewing. So I did say that those numbers will be updated. This is the number based on what I have updated as of today. But again, I'm still reviewing consultants, services, subscriptions. So, and I did say that the number probably is going to go up.
I had a question, clarification on when you said that, because that was my next question. When you said that it's going to go up, the deficit's going to go up. I just want to make sure I understand that this moves away from zero. So the deficit as presented is a negative $585,000. When you
Yes.
say the deficit goes up, meaning that it moves further away from zero, meaning it goes further negative. Is that correct?
Well, it gets closer to zero.
Oh,
Because the deficit, if we're
So the
spending more,
expense-
if we're spending more than we're taking in, the reserve's going down to make up the difference. So we are getting closer to zero. But
no, not on
That
the.
cash balance is
Not,
going.
not on the cash balance, meaning on the deficit, as you reevaluate expenses.
Mhm.
When you say that the deficit goes up, I just want to make sure that that means that it goes further negative. Is that what you mean? It just in the budget side, not.
so on the budget side, if upon review, the expenses now go up, the delta is more than the increase in revenue from the fee study, then yes, the deficit goes up.
Okay. But and when you say go up, just want to make sure that it means that goes further negative.
Yes.
Got it. I understand.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Hey, Tony, on the EV charging, so it's 381,000. You said some is funded via grant.
Yes.
How much of that is the grant?
That's all. What was in the table is all the grant money for the project.
Okay, and are the operating costs fairly minimal? And do we generate revenue off of those?
We generate some revenue, but it's basically recovering the cost of the service.
So it's kind of cost neutral to the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah, but there will be staff time associated with this because we are coordinating with all the other towns and cities that are involved. But there's going to be some rebates as well that should offset our costs, our operating costs. So it should be a minimal impact to the town.
Great, thanks.
A follow-up question, Tony, to clarify that chart you had on CIP. Can we just look at that real quick? Is that, which of those categories impact general fund?
The column 101. So
got it.
64,000, yes, is the operating costs but it's
So out of a total CIP budget of almost 1.5,
Mhm.
65,000 impacts the general fund, is that right?
for that one project.
I was looking at all of the one.
Yeah, so the project worksheets that'll be in the budget will have operating impacts. And it's mostly going to be staff time related to administering these projects.
So none of these CIPs actually, the capital doesn't come from the general fund. It's potentially staffed.
So the column 401.
Yeah.
That fund is funded by transfers from the general fund. And then it's used as for maintenance of effort for street resurfacing. It could be used as matching monies for grant requirements. Or there's annual, we have storm drain repairs, trail maintenance. Those are things that are funded out of Fund 401. We haven't had a transfer into Fund 401 in the last 2 fiscal years because it's a further drain on the reserve. But there's about 600,000 in that fund right now. But you need to come up with a long-term funding solution for capital projects from the general fund. And that's not just for streets, it's also for parks and fields and open space and buildings and facilities. But the CIP projects worksheets that'll be in the budget will have a line that says operating impact, X amount of dollars of staff time. And that's funded through the general fund.
Yeah, so and that's why I was trying to tie that to the other comment you made. I'd like to clarify. You said that we risk losing maintenance dollars,
Yes,
but we're not spending enough on maintenance.
we're Well, we deferred the resurfacing project for 24, 25. So we didn't meet the minimum maintenance of effort requirement for 24, 25. So it's about $350,000 of general fund money, which we fund through Fund 401.
And that triggers what? When you say we're going to lose?
We get, it's SB1 money, or RMRA, Road Maintenance Rehabilitation Account. That's received in Fund 206 along with gas tax. So this would be some funding that we would lose for not only just street resurfacing, but for any other street repair that we need to do.
So, so 206, how big is 206?
206 is about 600,000.
Okay. So if we spend 300, we have access to the 6?
Right.
Um,
Well, no, we would still have access to the road maintenance funding, which is about 200,000 of the 600,000.
Okay. So so when we, in the budget, if you looked at 24, 25 to 25, 26, we stepped up our maintenance
Mhm.
budget significantly, like 50%. And what I'm hearing you saying is we didn't spend that money
We
this
didn't
year.
spend it in 24, 25. But in 25, 26, we just started the street resurfacing project, I want to say March or April.
Are we gonna spend to budget this year?
We're probably not going to spend the 350 this year in 25, 26 either.
I know it's not a finance question, but was that finance related that we didn't spend it, or was it just
Timing,
operational?
operational.
execution? Okay. All right. So we do have a pretty robust maintenance budget in next year's as well. It's the
Right,
same-
but it's funded through other funds, not necessarily the general fund.
Well, it shows up in the, maintenance shows up in the.
Right,
general fund.
that's
It's
our normal parks and field maintenance. The buildings, vehicles.
So it's different than what we're talking.
Yeah.
Because we have $384,000 sitting in maintenance, what you presented.
Yeah.
And are we going to spend that this year?
This year, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but for
There's
streets, no.
Okay. Streets are separate.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was trying to tie out. I appreciate that. I got a couple other questions, but I don't want to hog the mic if somebody else wants to go. Otherwise, I'll hog the mic. Okay, go.
We can tag that. So on the staffing, you had mentioned that there's a creation of a new accountant one position. It sounded like that was a categorization issue. It wasn't a new ad of a person. Is that correct?
It's not a new ad of a person. It's a new position that wasn't available in the salary schedule. So it created a gap in the career track in the finance department.
That help? Is that helpful or neutral to getting audits done?
It's neutral.
Neutral.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just if the finance technician were to leave, then that would be adverse to the audit. So, but I'm not saying she's leaving. It's just that if as the finance technician, when she caps out, she doesn't have enough experience to be senior accountant. So she would have to go to another city or organization to get more experience as an accountant one, which we can offer, but we don't have that position in the salary schedule.
Do you feel as if you have the staff currently to get caught up within the next fiscal year?
Yep.
Audit?
Yes.
You do? Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah, no, staff's good. Whether it's developing them, and that's what I've been doing the past year.
Tony, my apologies again if I didn't hear this. On the finance manager proposed position, is that the same case? There's already a person.
No, that's going to be a recruitment.
So that it would be a new position that you would recruit for. Correct?
Yes, but it would be replacing me as the finance director because I've replaced the assistant town manager.
Okay. When you say it's proposed, does that mean you've already put a salary number into the?
Yes, it was in the salary schedule that the council reviewed at the last meeting.
What can you tell us what that amount was?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Another,
Hey, Bill, just a related question on that. Tony, netting out your move and the hires that you're going to do to kind of backfill some of the functions you were doing?
Mhm.
Is the finance department spending more or less?
Finance department will be spending a little bit more because the accountant one position is a increase from the finance technician position.
Okay, because it sounds like basically you moving on. I know you were already short staffed, so I just,
Yeah.
but, and now you're bringing in two people, I think, right?
No, we're bringing in one person. We have an internal position, internal person that could fill the accountant one position.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks.
Coming back, when you're doing the budgeting for the town attorney and also separate line item for legal consulting, how do you come up with that number for the coming year? Are you doing something off of this current year?
It's trend. And then, but like for example, this year for 26, 27, there's going to be additional costs related to the election. But then we also have other costs related to the housing element that we're charging to the Affordable Housing Fund. And then we also have a small amount of money set aside for open space in case there's any legal review of requirements if we were to acquire property or something so that it's just a placeholder for open space. But it's mostly trend. But I also consult with the town attorney.
Is the town attorney on an hourly or contract basis or both?
Hourly.
So it's totally based on whatever the workload flow is and so forth.
Right.
Okay, so you're saying that may be higher because of some of the things we're going to be doing?
Yeah, there are, but there's also, she's also doing work for planning and building with the project applicants. And that part of it is the actual work done by the town for the project applicants. That's a tough one to budget because it's all based on volatility.
What is the second line item that's not,
Legal services, that's if any additional help that the town attorney needs, mostly for employment matters.
not her time, it's if she needs help from someone?
Yeah, it's somebody else.
In her firm or another firm?
Another firm.
Okay.
A couple of
yeah.
points of context. We have a special deal with her for attending council meetings. It's a discount that applies to that to encourage her to be more available for ordinary course meetings. She is conflicted out of the Hawthorns, for example, her firm is. So we're appointing somebody to fill in for that, and employment counsel separate as well.
Thank you.
And I may have had one more. Actually, if I could sneak it in now, we were talking before the meeting started about the OPEB.
OPEB, yeah.
And the 115 trust that's not on our balance sheets here, that was established 7 or 8 years ago. Can you just update the committee members on that? I don't believe you need any money from the current, for the next year's budget to be dedicated to that because you believe that you're very close to being fully funded.
Yeah.
What we already have.
Yeah, because I mean, at one point the OPEB liability was over $800,000, and I believe with the 22, 23, we actually have an asset. OPEB, it's an OPEB asset, so it's more than what the liability is, I believe. But we're no longer having the big significant OPEB liability of over $800,000. So it has done what it is supposed to do.
Okay.
And for those listening, what Bill's referring to is an other employee benefit kind of trust fund. And we years ago had extra money and we actually established a trust to help fund that, which is actually working rather well. So as hard as that is to believe, years back, we had a significant cash balance and we're trying to find ways to use it effectively.
Well, however, we still have a unfunded pension liability.
Yeah.
Of almost 2 million.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not alone in that one.
But one time we were zero,
Yeah.
not that long ago. 10, 15 years. I don't remember when we funded that.
Yeah, one thing about, like with the contribution rates going down, for this fiscal year is because PERS's investment returns exceeded assumptions. So, increased the market value of assets across the board, which then, went, I mean, it was a very small number, but still it's not, the contribution rate didn't go up. But our contributions will because we have more employees than we did the previous year.
Tony, can you tell us, I don't think this is in any one spot in the budget, but what is the total number of expenses that we expect to incur to hold the election in November in this budget?
I think it's about 26. Yeah. Yeah. Let me, I think I updated that number, but let me double check.
Tony, the $568,000 deficit, that, is it true that will not be impacted by any tax measure that may pass in November because that the monies from that would not start before the end of this fiscal year? Is that, do you know if that's true?
If the,
In other words, if any measure that the council placed was passed in the budget in November, could any of the revenues from that new tax measure be received before the end of June 2027?
yes. Yeah, they'll go into effect January.
So for purposes of what you're showing us now, have you assumed that there's any money? from-
I have assumed nothing in regards to the outcome of the ballot. That will be, depending on the outcome in November, will result in a mid-year budget adjustment up or down.
Tony, a question on if we can look at contractors and consultants, that sheet you had up there.
Okay, all right. I was looking for the, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Look for the answer.
No. Well,
Yeah, you're right.
I think it's 27,000 for the election.
And that's services or something outside.
Yeah, that's the county's.
The staff time also that will.
Well, there's going to be minimal staff time for us. It'll be whoever is running, because it is, I think we have 3 council seats open. So whoever comes in to apply or pulls papers, there'll be some city clerk time related to that. Also, for the ballot measure, yes, there will be staff time for preparing the ballot measure, the fiscal impact analysis, that'll be done by me, but we also have the town attorney who'll be reviewing the language. We do have a consultant that's messaging, Lou Edwards Group. So yeah, those costs are being tracked outside of the normal expense line. I do have a project line for the election. Yep.
So contractors and consultants,
Yeah, it's,
because in the budget, that's about $4 million of this budget.
okay, it's not coming up. Sure. Yeah, the biggest increase in contracts is a contract.
Right. So what I was trying to figure out was what what's in contract versus what's in consultants? I mean, we have a $910,000 line item.
Right, so that the
Right.
consultants are CSG, they're doing the building and planning work. Whereas contract, it is actually a town department or it's a departmental budget that's being outsourced so there's really not much, there's no staff associated with, so I use that to separate the two, you know, because the contract, I mean, the sheriff's contract, they're not consultants. They're, you know, they're providing police services and the town attorney is actually providing legal services for the town. Whereas the consultants are augmenting staff services within planning and building and any other department.
So outside of the sheriff's contract, what are the top two contract expenses?
Would be the town attorney. That one's about 300,000. And then, Woodside Fire.
And then in consultants, CSG, I just saw in the most recent town council meeting that we're contemplating or we've approved an increase in CSG's contract.
Yes, and that's going to go back to a comment I made about actually budgeting for project applicant work. It's because we collect their money in advance and they do the service. So if the work done for a project applicant exceeds what we've budgeted or exceeds what we've approved in the contract, we have to amend the contract to increase the value of the contract so we can spend their money.
Okay, so when I look at this budget compared to last year, our consultant fees actually are slightly reduced.
Yes.
But you're saying we might actually spend more on CSG, but it's offset by.
The project applicant, the applicant deposits. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for all that. I appreciate
it. Continuing on the consultants. So in building and planning, there's miscellaneous consultants of about 310K in the budget. Is there also contract work done in building and planning, or is it all in the?
Yes. So there's town work and we have a planner. We have a planner that's doing the work as a consultant, and that's Good City. Now, if we have to do a specific project, like a housing element update or a safety element update, we actually have to hire a consultant to do that work, then that's the miscellaneous consultant.
So for 25-26, we're assuming 310K of miscellaneous consultant for building and planning. Is that an area for potential significant improvement, or is there expenses expected to absorb that?
And on the planning side, we really don't have a lot of fees to recover for town work. So like the safety element, which is required by the state, just like the housing element, those are general fund costs. We don't have the staff to do it. So the consultants are the ones that we hire to come in. Like the case with the housing element, it's if we submit, the HCD can either review it, reject it, then we have to go back to the drawing board. So that work is driven by the state and in compliance with the state. So again, we can give a number, we can say X amount of hours, but then if something happens, we exceed that. So it's really not something that we can really say, you know, I'm only giving you 25 hours to do this, because it's also dependent upon acceptance from another agency, if that answers your question.
Yeah. I guess my last miscellaneous consultant question. There's 235K, give or take, outside of building and planning of miscellaneous consultants. And a lot of them are flatlined from the prior year. I'm just curious, is that an area that my recollection is there's a lot of excessive use of consultants in the past.
Right.
And that's been addressed largely, but is there still the opportunity to cut that 235,000, or is that a pretty set number in terms of?
Well,
There'd be much.
We're still reviewing that number. We did rein them in significantly. The former interim Steve, he really reined them in regards to you know, what you can do, what you can't do. He was the one that brought the contracts back earlier in the year. So we're just going to be continuing from those contracts that he already set up. And the consultants are well aware of what our needs are and what our budget constraints are, and are working actively with us. But again, it's on the flip side with the project applicants. It's their money, and they have to do the work. So that's where we kind of get out of whack with the actual value of the contract. It's not all general fund, it's the whole package.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the application of the general fund minimum fund balance policy. So I just have the language from the previous one, which says that the town shall maintain a minimum of 60%. I know that the town council has since reduced that to 20%, actually at our recommendation, of its annual budgeted operating expenditures within the general fund's unrestricted fund balance. If the town council were to adopt this particular budget at the end, June 30, 2027, what would you expect approximately the general fund unrestricted fund balance to be then? Approximately.
1.9, 2 million.
All right, that made
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah.
It just so that everyone has the context, so that,
Give or take.
yeah, the aggregate expenditures in this budget is 8.8 million. 20% of that is 1.8 million. So and I think you showed this in one of your graphs. At the end, if the town council adopts this particular budget, they're at least, it should be close to the 20% threshold. Got it. Okay. All right.
Tony, this is kind of a general question. I read my copy of the Portola Valley Post the other day, and the beginning of this lists the 6 town council priorities. And in it says the 6 priority categories guide the establishment of town projects, budget, and programs. So I know there's not a line item here that says town council priorities. I didn't see it. Can you tell me how the budget was impacted by any of these 6 priorities?
Well, the community priority played a part in the nonprofits and the town committee budget. Safety plays a part in the sheriff's contract. Also Woodside Fire. Financial that plays a part in my budget. We don't have a specific line, but it's these priorities which guide each department's focus and work plan. And they do responsible land use. We've got safety element, housing element, but any other ordinance needs to be reviewed. It's the overarching drive to how we draft our work plan, and then gets built by the budget.
So if it's just a general, what guides you or it guides the departments in setting up these budgets, what were previous priorities that now can be cut out or reduced?
Well, we went through these at our council. We had a strategy session with the council a couple months ago, and they're the ones who developed these priorities, but they've been consistent for the past few years. But the ones prior to that, if it was prior to 22, 23, that's before my tenure, and I haven't really gone back to look at what they did in the past. I'm just focused on what we're going to be doing in the future. But these priorities were developed by council, and the mayor's got
Mayor Taylor.
something to add to that.
So I just keep running sustainability. We used to fund sustainability. And I think none of us are very happy, but we basically cut it out. So as an example,
That had a budget impact?
yeah. I mean, it wasn't in this budget, but it was in, a couple years back. Yeah. Because we had a position that we funded for it.
So the 6 priorities aren't necessarily new priority.
They
established in the past.
they tend to sort of roll slowly. I mean, public safety, for instance, I mean, it's going to be on every one of these. Right. I mean, because it's important. So, but like I said, sustainability used to be one of them. I mean, you go back, 2 years, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I mean, we had more that we had to trim back once it was clear we were going into deficit spending.
I had kind of the same reaction to my colleagues up here did. The list of priorities looks a whole lot like the priorities 7, 8, 15 years ago. I mean, these are things that have been longstanding, ideas here in town. I think what we're kind of getting at is we're interested in how these statements, which aren't action verbs, they don't specify what we're going to do more of or less of, what we have to cut back on or what we have to improve on. That's sort of missing from this document. And my sense, and maybe this is more of a recommendation for the post than the council, is this year or next year, let's take an extra step beyond this list and say, because of sustainability, we're going to do X differently than we've been doing in the past, or we're going to do this new thing. Give people something concrete, specific. Whether or not you have to put a dollar figure on it, I guess, is another question. But so what people know what we're trying to do differently than we've been doing previously. I mean, those of us who work with this stuff all the time have a better sense of that, but I think most of our citizens really don't know what's different or changed or whatever. And whatever they do learn is primarily coming out in the local news, coming from us or
Right.
From you. And probably, especially in a year when we want to go and ask for more tax revenue, that's you're already dialed into that. You have to get really crisp on
right.
Why it has to be done and why it's critical and why it aligns with our values and all that stuff.
Yeah. And one thing I'd add is, in the past, before we needed a balanced budget, we actually had these sort of top sort of principles. And then underneath it, we had some additional activities, which sort of to your point. And once we got to the point where we were trying to balance budget, we just didn't have any fun. I mean, it wasn't a particularly interesting exercise anymore. There wasn't a lot of latitude. So I completely agree with you. It's just there wasn't much room to spend. I mean, the stuff that Tony's budgeting was kind of the stuff that Tony had to budget. We didn't have a lot of like, oh, we could do this instead of this other thing. So I completely hear you. With a little bit more cushion, I think we'd have some room for some discretionary choices. And the last couple of years, we really haven't had much discretion.
Yeah, good. And so the thing that makes it different, I think, is if you're running a structural deficit and or you're going to put a proposal out for a new tax measure, then either of those two circumstances make it really important to, or maybe if you can't get audits done, that may potentially be another thing. What do we do?
Yeah.
Those are the types of things that people kind of dial into and dig in when they look at what we're doing here.
And when we get to the next agenda item, you guys can pile on some more because this will be helpful.
I would like to come back to a question I asked previously. Can you give more detail on your revenue assumption for property taxes and how that's been created? Because that's such a linchpin of this budget.
Right, because I use the number the assessor gives me. So if the assessor says property values have gone up 5%, then I'll put a 5% increase in property tax. Or if it's 4%, but I mean, it's whatever the number the assessor gives me.
Can you pull up that chart or are you locked out now?
Yeah, I think somebody commented that they want to see the committee, not the chart
I don't
or
know
the
why.
PowerPoint.
Speaking for one member,
Yeah.
other members,
Yeah.
quite worth looking at.
Yeah.
But so.
But then like some of the other, like sales tax, I'll
Well, no,
I'll
I
do
was thinking
CPI
we
or.
go to real estate tax because we had one outlier year, 23,
Mhm.
where
Right.
home sales were low. And
Well, that was the non-single family residents, we still average about 51 home sales per year at 5 million per year over the
I
last.
thought when we got into this whole structural deficit, as I recall, there were two variables. One was sales were down,
Mhm.
so we weren't getting, the kind of our assumed revenue kick up. And two, obviously, the sheriff's contract. Like those were the big levers,
Mhm.
lots of small levers, but those were the big ones. So, I feel like we talk a lot about the sheriff's contract and it's been analyzed ad nauseum, right? And been good work done on it. But it sure feels like the market's moving in a positive direction.
Mhm.
And I guess I'll ask the direct question. Are we underestimating revenues?
No,
Did we underestimate revenues this past year?
no.
Feels like we did.
Well,
That's why I'm looking for, that's why I was
I
looking.
mean,
for-
we're right on track with what was estimate, but we might come in under. But I believe I've pretty tight with the revenue numbers.
All right, so you feel good about that, one way or the other, real estate tax revenues,
Yeah.
which is our.
Now,
number one-
if another $40 million home sold, then yeah, that's going to provide some more transfer tax. But I mean,
I think I don't want to break this up, but
Yeah.
this has now moved well beyond clarifying questions. So
Well,
what
no, I think it is a clarifying question on.
well, it's more of a discussion.
How do we do?
So I'm
how do
happy,
we
I'm
do
happy to
revenue
come back to this in a
forecasting?
moment. I'm just hoping to get to hands raised from the public first. and then-
Okay, sounds good.
Then we can come back to the sort of bonus round here for the committee. David Cardinal, I think you were first up with your hand.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, this is a great discussion. I also don't think it's awful to just say life in our bucolic, amazing, world-class, best of class community has gotten more expensive. I don't know that we have to do things different or the same or whatever. It costs a lot more. It costs more to hire people. It costs more to hire policemen, firemen, everything else. And just like medical care, the costs are going up faster than our revenue. And I get that we need to frame our potential tax increase discussions in a bigger way than that. But I'm not ashamed to say, if you want things to stay the same and not have a hotel or a car dealership or 3 more restaurants or anything change about your town, it's going to cost you more because it is. So that's my only thought. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Betsy Morgenthaler, you're next.
Thank you so much, committee and Tony, for the presentation. I'm particularly interested in the trade-offs of additional FTEs in town, which I think we collectively desire to have a more robust staff because of the town culture, and the benefit to having more staff, as I imagine it, is we reduce, and I think it's a priority for the town's priority, I mean, to reduce consultant use. So looking just at the planning and building department, there's one recent hire. We onboarded an excellent person, as I understand it, in April, and we're proposing an additional development technician. So that will be +2 as we forecast out a year from now. You were calling for a 3.19% or a $30,000 saving. I wondered if I was missing something or whether you could flesh out for me the trade how it is that we get 2 additional FTEs and save 30,000 in consultants. Thanks so much for the answer.
Thank you, Betsy. Tony, any comment on that?
We're not proposing an increase in that. Actually, it's a decrease. Last year's FTE count was 15.5. We no longer have the part-time assistants. So the number of, and the current position is a development review technician position that is vacant. We are proposing to put the development review technician / building inspector position in place of the development review technician, do a recruitment. If we cannot find the person to fill that position as proposed, then, but if we have a eligible candidate who is actually a development review technician, we will hire that person. But we are not proposing any increase in FTE for 26-27.
Thanks so much.
So if I have this correct, just to clarify for everybody out there, this is the difference between positions that you established versus
Right.
the total head count
Right.
that occupy those positions. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. And Rita Comas, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. In the past, we've talked about looking into other options other than the San Mateo Sheriff's Department. And I believe that there were discussions on trying to find another resource for this. Is that still being pursued, or is the San Mateo Sheriff's Department our only game in town that we have time to try to discuss? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rita. At the risk of being corrected by somebody here, which would delight me, everything that I've heard is that we've come up empty on that one. All the other public safety agencies, from Redwood City to Menlo Park to Palo Alto to you name, just aren't interested. They face the same pressures in their communities around budgets and trying to get things done from a public safety standpoint that we do. And I'm reading between the lines in here. This is just my personal opinion. If I'm charged with running a town, one of our neighboring towns, or the public safety agency, there's not a lot of positives in me taking on the burden of going out to Portola Valley. And when you think about the issue that you're 15 minutes late in responding to a call from a resident in the middle of your town because they were 10 miles away or 10 miles away dealing with TV, that would be politically a problem. So for that, probably, and other reasons, it's just nobody.
It takes 2 to tango.
I'm actually interested in hearing at some point from the sheriff's department, maybe our traffic committee already does, is what the impact of AI is on their ability to provide the services or reduce their costs. I mean, there's virtually no industry that's not going to be impacted in some way. Some are being heavily impacted already. I'm quite curious what that means for us besides robo officers.
Yeah, there were some troubling movies on that point in the sci-fi front a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, AI is going to be interesting how it shakes out, right? We had a lot of enthusiasm for it, and now we have a lot of companies pulling back from their use of it because they're spending too much. So I'm pretty confident the net benefit will be positive from a productivity standpoint. But I don't know that we're there yet. What is now?
Drones.
Drones. Oh, yeah, sure. That's a great point. Right. Mayor Taylor was making the point that drones is an area of advancement. Yeah, if you're in a public safety function and you want to know what's going on, you could find out pretty quickly. Any other comments here from the public before we bring it back for any further discussion here? Yeah, and Dave Cardinal just typed into the chat. Drones are being used. They could do quick response and track perpetrators while you're waiting for the police to actually get someone. Okay, I don't see any other hands from the public, so I'll bring it back here if there's any more commentary or discussion that we want to have on this item before we move to the mayor's presentation.
Clarification. So George, would this part be the part of the discussion where we would be talking about our reflections upon what the proposed budget is, or does that come after the mayor's presentation, do you think? What would be the most appropriate?
what do you think? Should we listen to the mayor first? No?
Yeah, they're separate.
So let's do it now. Let's do that now.
So yes, feedback, I'm requesting feedback, but just to recap, on the expense side, we're still reviewing the consulting costs. We're still reviewing subscriptions. We're still reviewing some other expenses. So yeah, I'm anticipating that the the expense number will change. And then we're also reviewing the impact of the fee study. So I'm anticipating the revenue number to change.
Okay.
But I would say $600,000 is the plus or minus is probably the landing spot for our deficit.
So here, I'll just come right out of the gate. So actually, Tony, Chris, and I, we all started on the exact same day, almost exactly 2 years ago.
Yes, we did.
And in that particular case, we actually did present it was close, very, very close to a balanced budget. And I think it was actually then Councilmember Taylor in the town council meeting said, if we're close enough, let's just go ahead and have a balanced budget. And that's what was adopted for that year. Last year, this committee recommended the budget that is shown here, a deficit budget of $263,000, which my recollection is that we're actually going to do better than that, meaning it's going to be closer to in balance, not because of revenue, but because of, I think, unfilled positions for some period of time. So it's actually more is because of a reduction in expenses, largely through unfilled positions, which are now filled. So we do have actually at this moment in time, another point of discussion whether this committee would recommend to the town council to adopt a deficit budget, which is now materially more in deficit than the previous year, or something different. That something different would naturally be not a surplus budget as maybe had been done in the past, but I think the best that can be hoped for or even thought to be recommended would be a balanced budget. But if you look at the expense categories, because there's really fundamentally nothing that can be done about revenue short of a new tax proposal that may take place in the future, which is uncertain. So the only thing that can be looked at is expenses. There's really only two categories that matter. One is the staff in the town, and the other is the contract, which is dominated by the sheriff's contract. This is my personal perspective that I actually think that the town has done a phenomenal job of actually recruiting really talented people. And it's actually been, we have actually, I think, a really talented town manager, and we have a really talented assistant town manager who had been previously the director of finance. And I think, and the people that I've met in the town council or the town staff, actually, I've been impressed with. So I, for one, actually, I think at even an FTE equivalent of about, let's say, 15 people, it's hard to imagine a town of our size really functioning, even with the efficiencies of AI. It's hard to imagine it being much less than that. Maybe that's debatable, but I think that therefore the only thing to look at is the contract, over $3 million, the majority of which over 2.5 million is the sheriff's contract. There we have a quantum problem. The quantum problem is that, from what I recall, is that the contract with the county of San Mateo County is largely one full deputy for 24 hours, and that requires some amount of overlap. So we do have a bit of a quantum problem, because you can't, unlike in the case of Woodside Fire, where we can reduce vegetation management down from 80 days to 60 days to help reduce it. Because of the quantum problem, we can't really do that with the sheriff's contract. I've lived here over 10 years. I've never once, maybe others have, I've never once actually met one of the officers here. We live in fundamentally a safe town. I think that the only thing that we might be able to do as a finance committee to recommend a balanced budget to the town council this year is actually reduce the sheriff's contract. If it, on the presumption that we actually even have that ability, because it renews every year, I would actually recommend that in order to get to a balanced budget. I think that it's something it may be unpalatable to many to consider public safety and the reduction, but I actually think that we generally live in a safe town, and it's not safe because of the police. I think it's safe because of the cultures and values of the people who live in this town. I also think that people who live in this town and we generally as a society have an obligation to protect ourselves first and foremost. We are faced with this quantum problem. So I think that if we were to have to reduce it to no overnight sheriff, I think that's something that we have to seriously consider. But I, for one, would urge this finance committee to consider a balanced budget to put forward to the town council for their adoption, in part because I think that there's a realistic chance that any ballot measure for tax increases may not pass, and it's best we actually live under a balanced budget and to do so now. And the only way I see feasible to do so is to reduce significantly the sheriff contract. So that's what I have to say on that topic.
Yeah, sure. Would love to hear from Mayor Taylor on that, but first I'll just mention my understanding. I would love to be able to do that, but from everything I've been told, the sheriff's department is unwilling to accept that. Back to the point Tony made before about the contract requires 2 to tango. They've just said, take it or leave it. If you want it, this is kind of the minimum package. And if I were to just apply, again, now I'm speaking personal opinion, game theory here, the sheriff's department has increasing costs too. They're trying to recover them from everyone they can, including us, starting years ago with a change to how the contract runs. If we just say, well, we want to pay you less, they're going to say tough. If we say, well, we might not win an election to get more revenue, they'll say, well, tough. So then you run the election, and if you get more revenue, you can pay their contract. Okay, everything is status quo. If we fail to get the increase and we're facing dissolution, now they have a problem, because instead of getting their additional monies from us, they may get nothing from us if this dissolve as a town. And then you may have some leverage, although now you're into Iran-style brinkmanship, the domestic version, hopefully, where no one gets injured. But you never know what the other side's going to do. So it's challenging. And with that.
Yeah, I would just add on to what you said. I mean, so I did go talk to the sheriff. I mean, I set up a meeting to see if there was any chance we could move to, say, 18 hours. And George has basically hit it. The county is pushing expenses on them, and they're pushing expenses on us. And that, with the new sheriff, the good thing I'll say is the new sheriff and his management is a huge improvement. But in terms of going to 18 hours, he's just like, that's not going to work. He says, like if something happens, we're going to have to come out there, and then you're not paying for it. I mean, for him, that was a no-go. And I'm not sure even for our residents, if they truly said, yeah, if you get a call at 2:00 in the morning, we will not come out. I'm not sure that our residents would be willing to accept that. So I completely appreciate what you're saying. I just wasn't able to break that quantum. So anyway, just a little more information.
Yeah, and I would only just weigh in on that again to think about human behavior and the moral hazard of letting it get out to anyone in the violent criminal community that, hey, Portola Valley is unprotected between the 2 hours of midnight and 6 a.m. Go for it, guys. It's sort of reenacting the Wild West is not something I'm interested in, where we're all sitting there with our shotguns alert all night.
Just historical perspective, the same topic came up about 10 or 15 years ago. So this has been an issue for a long time. The contract was smaller, but we had less revenue. And I think a couple of members on this committee got together with the traffic committee, and we had one of the representatives from the sheriff's office, and we had them step through line item by line item their costs. We were trying to get at the same issue, and I'm sure it looks about as unbelievable now as it did then. There were about 85 or 90 line items, including things for new holsters and an unbelievable number of things. And the one we started looking at, you may remember, George, was traffic citations. So we're saying, well, maybe we can instruct, law enforcement. Let's be pretty aggressive about enforcing the stop signs for cyclists and the speed limits for drivers and everything else. And, if you want to write a few more tickets, it keeps the town safer, that's fine with us. And we were assuming that we were going to get a substantial portion of the citation, because it was a pretty big number. Because I remember this clearly. It turned out the town only got 4% of the gross revenue from a ticket citation because there are about 15 other entities and set-asides that took away from it. So that was the last time I remember we tried to kind of inspect their cost structure to see where we could pull dollars out. And it was the most unbelievable morass of stuff you can imagine. So it's kind of it's the same thing that the county is passing down. I don't know what the solution is. I think it's almost an unmanageable problem with the way, we're structured between local and county and all these other types of things. So unless we start doing more of our own policing, by the way, the cost of the automated license plate reader program, I don't know if Tony, is that a separate line item or is that part of our,
We don't have, that's not in the budget.
do we have any costs of that anymore?
Mm-mm.
We
We don't have them.
took them out?
Yep.
We spent, how much did we spent like $250,000 putting them in, correct?
That was before my time.
Okay, so it's not an issue anymore
Yeah.
in terms of cost, right, to maintain.
No cost. We're not there.
But there are. The county has one, down by Ladera, and Riverside has one.
The mayor's pointing out that there are county-run ALPRS readers elsewhere.
Well, hopefully we haven't had more break-ins and,
I'm concerned, first of all, I think this is a good budget. My own opinion, the best we can do right now. To actually continue to be a town, we have to have public safety, as people have acknowledged. And then we have all these other requirements the state has on us that require a lot of activities that need to be funded by the general fund. So everyone's pushing costs down on us. That's happening to us. So we can fund it this year and we should. That would be where I am. I'm quite keen to try to move on, though, if we can, pending any last comments here, because we do want to hear from the mayor. And we only have about a half an hour left until there's a hard stop,
Right.
About 25 minutes before another committee has to come in.
Good. George, I just want to add in relation to the sheriff's contract, tolls 2.5 million, labor costs alone are 2.2. So the rest but it's uniform allowances and maintenance and vehicle maintenance. And so that's about $360,000 of the 2.5.
Okay, great. So yeah, that's not a lot of overhead, if you will. Yeah, given the building it into labor. All right, that's very helpful. Okay. Okay. Well, then more comments in here.
We can either discuss revenue modeling or if you want to table it, George, we can table it, but I would like to request seeing the latest report from the consultants who do, because I think that's your key input to revenue model, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
You're asking for property tax revenue?
Yeah, property tax. That's what we're discussing.
Yeah, to share with us, you're saying?
Yeah, just to share with the committee, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Great,
That sounds great.
thanks. I'm just bullish on property tax revenue, if you can't tell.
You can be bullish all you want, but I can't afford to be bullish.
No, you have to be
I
conservative.
understand that.
And I've heard a lot of anecdotes that, what is it? Anthropic has filed to go public, and there are a lot of founders of OpenAI companies and whatever who may want nice homes in Portola Valley. So hope is a wonderful thing, but hope is not a strategy. So
Right.
I understand, but
Yeah.
good forecasting is good forecasting.
yeah.
And my forecasting's been pretty good.
Any more comments here before we move on? All right, we will move to the next agenda item, which is our presentation by Mayor Taylor.
Little different sitting at You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I was gonna say a little different, me sitting at this side of the table. At our last meeting, I had asked the chair if I could have a little bit of time. This is less of a presentation and more what I'm hoping will be a discussion. What I'm going to show you, and it's evolving, so even what I sent out this afternoon, I've changed a little bit. But my goal is to come up with a presentation that I'm particularly going to go with, but I know some other council members are interested, is to go out to the public and educate them on finances. Because unlike this group that's deeply steeped in all the things that are going on, most people are like, finance is what? You know, like we have a deficit. They truly don't know. And so that's really my goal. And so what I'm hoping to get from you guys today is more directional. I'm happy to take as small a comment as you want to make, but mostly I'm looking for sort of directional issues. So with that, let's see if I can make all the pieces here work. Unknown error. Great.
Come on, get down.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've actually made a few changes. Let me see if, just give me another, let me just see if I can get Zoom up. This is, one of our frustrating sort of IT moments. Come on, come on. Well, I even updated it since I said it. It's a draft, right? So it's, so let's see if this works. And then, well, I'll tell you what, I was going to try to put it in slide mode, but let's see, maybe, okay. Did that show up as slide mode for you guys?
It was showing up before, but nothing now.
Zoom, kind of love it. All right, let me try one more time. Well, I'm gonna just so we don't waste time on this. You guys can see that okay?
It started. There we go.
Okay. It's just what I'd like it to do is go to full screen mode, but that doesn't seem like.
If you click on slideshow, it should.
I'm trying.
Oh, okay.
I'm not plugged in.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Okay. Great. Thank you for your patience. Okay. So again, the audience is not financially, it's not you guys, right? This presentation isn't for you guys. What I'm looking for is your help in making this the best presentation when I go out to the public. Like
Okay.
that's really what I'm looking for. It's like 20 slides right now. It feels a little long to me, but I try to I try to jam a lot of information here because again, I think, most people aren't paying attention. Like they're not following along like you guys are. So I can go through these slides pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What I would say is don't hesitate. Like if there's a slide and you want to comment on it, it's probably easier to do that than have me talk my way through the whole thing and then have you guys comment on the end of it. But I'm happy to do either way. Yeah, go ahead. Bill.
Yeah, just so I have more context, what are you planning specifically to do with this presentation and when are you going to do it?
So my goal is starting probably next week is to go out to neighborhood like HOAs, go out to the PTA, go to the Sequoias. Basically, meet with the public and present this because, we have our open houses and, a few people show up, we get our 10 or 12, but I really feel like, we've had this discussion. We can see what the issues before us are. I think it's critical that the larger residential population understand what these issues are. So my goal is to try to get this to as many people as possible. If there's a group of 10 people that want to meet with me, I will take this to them and meet with them. That's kind of my goal. And if you have thoughts on that, and people you think I should meet with or other ways to present, to go about this, I'm all ears.
There's primarily people who are registered to vote, but you don't know who those are, but it's anywhere where the voters are.
Yeah,
Which inc-
exactly.
Which
yeah.
includes the sequoias, correct?
I totally, yeah,
Yeah.
would include the sequoias, absolutely.
I would say just as an opening idea, I mean, I've been through the presentation a
Yeah.
couple times. It's really good. There's just a lot in here.
Yeah,
I
know.
think you got to come up with a way to almost have a one-page
Right,
sales sheet for this thing,
okay, Yeah.
and then say, if you want more info,
yeah,
go,
Yeah.
you could click on this, right? I mean, because, attention spans are
yeah.
like zero.
Well, yeah, so I've reorganized it a little bit from what I sent out. So to try to get a little bit more to some of the meat earlier rather than later. And I'm struggling, like my typical presentation style would be one slide with like 3 bullets, and then I talk about it for 5 minutes. Like that's my style. But given that this is probably going to float around independent of my actually being able to present it, I was also trying to provide enough material that people could read through it and sort of start the conversation. So it's a little bit of a balance. But if you have suggestions for the one pager or how I could turn 20 pages into 5, I'm all ears. So with that, let me just, and again, I'll go through these things fairly quickly. I reorganized it a little bit. I did the demographics, why we're the town, then a little bit of financial highlights to get people sort of where we're at, and then sort of talk a little bit about how we got here, because I think that's one thing a lot of people asked. And then revenues and expenses, this is where it kind of gets into more of the nerdy stuff. And then talk a little bit about, what services we might want. So demographics, this is all pretty basic stuff. Not going to spend time here unless, are you guys okay if I just kind of zip through? Because
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's probably a good way to present it to the public too. You have the standalone, they can read the detail, you hit it the high level. And
yeah,
keep going.
and some of these slides I'm expecting to go through in under a minute. The next 2 slides, the really critical thing is these are quotes directly from the general plan. And I think a lot of people don't understand that Portola Valley is the way it is because of our intention. It's because of our general plan. Like it didn't just accidentally turn into this wonderful place. We made some decisions in 1964 to basically have a general plan that embodied sort of these values. And that really makes the town what it is. And then, from that, you end up getting a set of guidelines. And, a lot of people think, oh yeah, everybody does this, but, most jurisdictions don't do this. They don't focus on, an overall impression of open space. They don't, focus on minimal lighting and minimal noise. Like those are things that we've intentionally chosen to. So sometimes people say, well, why don't we just unincorporate? Who cares? Like, let's just give our property tax money back to the county, and then we don't have to worry about any of this stuff. And I would argue that it's these values that we're protecting. So, okay, so then you guys have seen all the, yeah, go ahead, please.
It would be strong here to state what the alternative. Because any town can have these values.
Right.
If they choose to. The alternative is to be part of the county.
Which doesn't have these values.
And that to me, that should be said.
Yeah, okay.
They don't have these local values. They have other values.
And I'm just taking notes as we go, so. So then this is sort of, basic highlights, where the money comes from. It's just basically kind of stuff that Tony just talked about. So I won't spend a lot of time here. I'll just keep going, just in the essence of time. Then I kind of wanted to hit, how we got here. How do we get to a structural deficit? And, there's a lot of stuff that's floated around. We've got articles in the paper, and, we get stuff on PV Forum, and then we have discussions here. And, a lot of this was lack of financial discipline. Some of it was COVID. I didn't put COVID in here because it's sort of hard to, pin something on a disease directly. But we certainly had an understaffed department, financial department. And this is obviously all before Tony. So I put none of this on Tony. But, slow to react. And basically a delayed recognition that, letting our audit slip was a serious issue that we as a town should have been on top of. And so, sort of acknowledging that, that's a reality. And it wasn't on my watch, but that doesn't make it doesn't mean it's not something that we, the town, aren't responsible. So, and then the rest of the stuff you guys have heard, public safety expenses have gone up. And then we've got a lot of state mandates that keep coming down. I mean, we're over $1.5 million that we spend on the housing element, not on actually, implementing, just getting consultants to write it so we can get the state and HCD to approve it. I mean, stuff like that is painful, but they're state mandates that we still have to respond to. Could we have responded to them more cost effectively? Probably yes, but they're still going to keep coming down the line. And the state seems to want to do more and more stuff where they dictate the terms to the jurisdictions. We had a lot of revolving, what I call revolving door of personnel. Some of that was, we've had some personnel have been here a long time, and I think, it sort of burned out. And some of it was people sort of saw the writing on the wall and decided to exit. So we, at this point, I mean, other than our maintenance guys, have basically replaced our entire staff. And, I think, Mark, you spoke to it. I think we've hired some really good staff members. I mean, as a council member, I have to say, I am pleased. I think we've hired a good town manager, and we've got Tony. And so it's been a little rocky getting here, but I feel like we're finally starting to pick up speed. And this is one of the frustrating things, is when you have no staff, you can get nothing done. So until you can get over that hump, it's hard to get the wheel spinning. Poor management and consultant budgets. Again, some of that was sort of past behavior. Some of that wasn't managing the budgets. And then some of it was, just we get different personnel and nobody's watching, and they, consultants, they'll be happy just to send you a bill every day. So, so I think we've gotten much better about that. I mean, we now have directors in place that are basically responsible for the budgets. Increasing personnel costs. I mean, that's just a fact of life. I mean, stuff is getting more expensive. Out-of-date master fee schedule, we just approved sort of the first half, and at the next meeting, we'll likely approve kind of the second half. And then Prop 13, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but as you guys know, I mean, because we were a low tax, no tax jurisdiction at the beginning, we get 4.3%, and it's gotten rounded up to 7. So then this is the, little graphic just to help people understand. This is what your property taxes go to, right? I mean, and that little yellow bar, that's Portola Valley. And so you can see almost everybody gets more money than me. So then revenues, so this is 25, 26. If we get a 26, 27 budget, I could potentially put that in here, but I was hesitant to put it in until the councils actually come to some agreement. So this is all 25, 26. I don't think there's anything in here surprising. This is just trying to explain to people where our money comes from and that we have restricted funds. And so, one of the awkward things is people sometimes look and say, well, oh, you have $8 million in the open space fund, and all that's great, except that's off limits for our general obligations, as you guys all know. So it's just explaining these things to the general public. Expenses, again, I'm not going to spend too much time just because I feel like we just sort of had this discussion. Obviously, when I'm out talking to people, it's going to warrant a little more discussion. But I think you guys sort of get, what we do in terms of contracts and services, and then, what we're funding to basically provide our operations. Basic status update of, what our revenue was, what our expenses were. And, we're at roughly this 4% revenues and 6% expenses. And it sounds like maybe the 700 is slightly reduced. Maybe it's going to be 600. And, once I know, I can sort of update some of this stuff. But generally, we're underfunded as the local government. You guys have seen this chart. I won't spend time on it other than I just tried to point out to people sort of, what some of the various dips are and try to explain it like that. So then this is where it starts to, I think, get interesting. I think this is where you guys can help. It's kind of the next couple of slides. So I want people to understand, what it is that we need to spend money on. What are the issues here? And so obviously we have a bunch of capital improvement projects and maintenance. So, some of them are obvious, like roads, ongoing maintenance road, but it's a bunch of stuff we've been deferring. And that's, for me as a council member, certainly is one of the things I'm concerned with. Storm drains, we haven't had a master plan for our storm drains in, I think, 20 years, maybe longer. So there are a bunch of issues that basically have been accumulating that, you can only kick the can down the road for so long. So we're going to have to deal with this stuff. And then we've got unfunded liabilities and increasing medical expenses. So, I think we've got all these sets of things. And then I think one thing you guys can comment on is, we cut the reserve down to 20%. But I think there's a real question here that we need to ask is, if we have, let's just say climate change continues and we have some kind of serious disaster, well, we could spend $3 or $4 million if the road gets blown out. And we have a reserve of $2 million. And so thinking about, is 20% enough? I don't know. It feels like Woodside's got, their budget's way higher than ours. Their reserve's way higher than ours. At least when I looked at it, they got like $11 million as far as I could tell in their reserve right now. So
One thing I just will point out along those lines is, I think my third year on this committee was 1998 when all the roads washed out around here. It was a very severe El Nino year.
right,
We had all kinds of floods and Upper Alpine was closed for a very long time.
right.
This year is looking to be another severe El Nino year, potentially. You can never tell where all the rain's going to go, but your point about disasters occur, flooding does occur. It's separated by decades, but we maybe do.
Right. And it seems like they're coming more regularly. So,
But by the way, on that same point, Chris and I were doing our subcommittee report about 2 years ago, looking at this issue of the 60% versus something lower. And we spent some time, I think we wanted to see if we could provide a justification for having a lower reserve. And we found some, you're aware, we found there are sort of backup sources of funding, out of the open space fund, other places. I think we ended up learning about the sale lease back. So we came up with some alternatives. And one of the other things I think we said in that report is we referred to the time back in El Nino. And, we learned a lot about, how you go get the federal funds and the emergency funds. And we had to go into all that stuff because the town was much smaller. We didn't have resources for it. There's some knowledge that exists somewhere in the town. Maybe the people are gone, but all the documentation from what we did back then, this is a good time to say part of what we're going to do is make sure we are in place to get all the money from other sources if we have a need, because we're not going to be able to dip into even if it's 60%, it may not be enough to dip into what we need, and be prepared for that now. In other words, do the work now that we would be doing, the week after a major, wildfire or something of that nature. Maybe it's already been underway for some time. I don't know.
Well, just for context, I've gone through FEMA recovery efforts, but the town's still going to have to put money up front before we get reimbursement from FEMA.
Yeah, so
And we've got about 5 minutes.
Where would our lines of credit come from? And these are the things that we have to be thinking about now. So we have a 20% reserve, and then we have a list of things we know we can do or should do as part of that.
and that was part of what I was trying to get in the next bullet, which is sort of defining the service levels that we want in the town. And also what is our long-term, and maybe I just should say long-term financial plan rather than spending plan, because I think then that would capture some of what you're saying. So then these are some of the services, we basically sent out the survey. This talks about, some of the things that the public said that they're interested in. And then we have additional potential capital improvement projects. And then we have a question of, what services do we want to provide? If somebody comes in today, like Friday, the office is closed. So if you want to get a permit, you're getting nothing. And if the permit tech isn't there on Thursday and we tell you to come back Tuesday, is that the service level we want? And I don't know the answer, but I think those are the questions that we're going to have to decide on. So then here I was just trying to, say, if we were to raise, 1.5 to 2 million, these are some of the things that we might fund, to try to make it clear what some of the issues are. And this one is new from what I just sort of reoriented this to make it a little clearer.
I'm always obsessed with our unfunded pension.
Okay.
Sorry, I just obsessed with it.
That's,
It's about 2 million, I think, right?
got it. I will add it to the list. All right. So then possible options, basically with the real estate property transfer tax that we talked about, parcel tax and unincorporating. And then we looked at some smaller options, but they weren't enough to get us to the kind of numbers that we looked at. And then longer term possibilities is, we could do potentially an annex with Ladera, but that's probably 5 or more years to do. That is not a quick process. And they have expenses of their own. I mean, I just found out recently that the rec district there gets 3% of their property tax. Just the rec district. We get 7% to run the entire town. So,
I'm sorry, question. I thought one under the smaller saving investigator reallocated UUT for synergy with Woodside. Wasn't there also a increase in the general fund part of the UUT on the table? Not a reallocation from open space, but a increase. I think it's at 5.5% right now for the general fund. Am I correct?
I thought what we were talking about was reallocating the open space.
But I thought there was also a possibility of increasing the 5.5%. We can't, and being a 50+1 election, we can't do the reallocation from open space without that being 2/3. And you're right, it'd be 2/3 for a regular parcel tax, but an increase in the general UUT, which is currently at 5.5%, I think would only require a 50+1.
Okay, well, let me check. So just because we're going to run out of time, I wrote it down. I'll check on it. My recollection, though, is that we weren't going to raise enough. I mean, if we're trying to raise 1.5 million, I mean, the UUT represents like 15% right now. So I don't know what we crank it up to get there. But I'll look at it. I mean, I don't want to deep dive on it, but this is why I wanted to get your guys' opinions. So then current status is just, sort of, what we're doing now. And basically these decisions, and this is what I want to be clear with you guys, we talked about it last time as well, is this is going to come to the council in July. Like we're doing budget stuff in June, and then this is going to come in July. This is going to go on the ballot. It's got to be submitted on August 7th. So this window is quite small for dealing with this stuff. And then I just talked a little about what our real estate property tax is, real estate property transfer tax is. You guys know all this stuff, so there's nothing new here. Just I was giving a little bit of context so people don't think that, oh, they're doing some weird ass thing. I mean, there's a lot of cities in California that do this. And then
one small comment on that. It might,
yeah, sure.
and I think in general, comparing to other cities, like you don't do a lot of like side by side in this presentation. So if you were going to propose the transfer tax, show, well, here's what other cities nearby do.
Yeah.
Just, in quantitative terms.
Okay.
And I also like when we see data, we've looked at it of, well, we get 7% and Woodside gets this percent or whatever, right? Just because it takes away the focus from, I hate to put it this way, but our town council doesn't know what they're doing, right? To wait, we're just not getting the money, right? That I'm just, if you do those comps with towns where people recognize,
Sure.
then I think
you'll
hook them a little bit.
Oh, like add another slide.
No.
Well, yeah, it's almost
I would
5:30.
recommend deleting about 10 of these, but
I do take your
I
point.
know we're up against time.
Yeah, we want to.
I would also mention that, again, Howard Jarvis possibility of in November where they would do away with the,
Yeah, for a while I had that actually in the text. I was just going to speak to that.
because you don't want people voting for that and you don't want them voting for that and then and wanting both and then really not understanding they had maybe shouldn't have voted that way.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So then last slide is just kind of next steps. So that's kind of what I have in mind. thank you for these comments. If you have other comments, you could send them to me. I will incorporate all the ones I can. And then you'll see this again, like this will become a public document, like this isn't some secret document. My goal is to get this finished up and then I'll bring it to a council meeting and then it'll be public document. Other council members can use it. And like I said, I plan to use it to go out to various.
Yeah, I think it's excellent and it's a great idea to make sure people see this because everyone's very busy, obviously, doing everything else and just living secure that everything is running wonderfully here in Portola Valley. And so having the opportunity to see what the issues are will be very helpful. I want to be respectful of the next committee, which is having a meeting that was supposed to start 1 minute ago. And so I need to apologize to members of the
Again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
I want to apologize to members of the public because I won't be able to take comments because we are right up against the deadline for the next committee. So please accept my apology. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
I am opposed. The reason is the entire reason that we called this meeting
Yeah.
was to actually either recommend or not the proposed budget to the town council. If we don't accomplish that objective, what are we doing?
Okay, I don't think we have time to deal with that. We need to adjourn. Thank you.